Well, it looks like we've got everyone on the call that's going to be here today. We will probably have a shortened agenda as I don't think we'll be discussing any of the current blood lead levels. But with that, we can kind of get right into the agenda and talking about the scope of work that I've shared with you all for the 218 East 7th Street property. I hope that you've all had a chance to look at the most recent version, the version 1.3. And if you guys have any questions or comments, we can kind of go through those most recent changes. The biggest change was in the project description page. Our contracting officer just wanted a little bit more descriptive language required for that project description. The rest of it was more or less just cleaning up and changing the language to be appropriate for our contracting process. I believe all the recommendations that Melanie had suggested, I accepted, and they were preserved through the review from our contracts officer. So I believe this is ready to go to our next contracting step, barring any additional changes the work group would like made to the document. So if I'm not hearing any additional input, then my next steps will be to provide this document to our contracts officer. She will give it one final review. I will let you guys know of any changes based on that last final review. And then we will essentially begin the public solicitation process. The project will go out for what we call a request for proposal, and it will have to be publicly posted on the CDPHE's vendor self-service website for 1 month. During that time, we can let any contractors, eligible contractors, know about that public posting, and they can submit their proposals to the CDPHE, which we will review at the end of that 1 month public solicitation. If you guys have any other questions about the contracting process, I can talk a little bit to that, but I believe that we're ready to move forward.
So Carl, you might want to just refresh everyone's memory on the evaluation panel, and then how we're going to make that up on this project.
Yes. So the part of the proposal review incorporates a review of a committee made up of, typically it's CDPHE employees, but for our purposes, for the work group, I think that it would be beneficial to have myself, Linda, at least one of the commissioners make up that review committee. There would be a conflict of interest form that has to be signed by all review committee members. So as long as there's no issues with you signing those forms, then you could be a part of the committee, essentially, is my understanding. And we use a numerical scoring system to evaluate the proposals. I believe that cost is not one of the scoring metrics, but we may be able to incorporate that. I have to double check on that. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Kyle, you will, once proposals come in, you'll circulate them to everybody, right? Even though not everybody will be on the panel.
I guess I would have to double check with our contracting on that.
I don't think we can do that. I think that we're only allowed to have them go to the review panel, and the review panel has to hold them confidential until the final decision's made. I believe
the county commissioners can't. I mean, I don't know if they can act through one person.
Right, they could all be part of the review panel. I mean, we could have
Okay.
it big enough where all of them can be part of the review panel.
Yeah,
and
and
all see it.
But then it's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
have to be
sorry,
a public meeting.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
think, can we have someone from the county health department be on the panel? And
yeah,
represent
we
the
certainly
county?
can.
Yeah.
There's no real limitation to the size of the committee as far as I'm aware. Like I said, I was just saying that at least one, member from the county should be, part. But if you guys feel that it should be more, we certainly can do that.
So let us check with our contracting people and see if there's a way to allow the commissioners to review the proposals without being all part of the review panel, and what potential legal and contracting issues that might pose. Because typically when we're in these review panels, we are not allowed to discuss the proposals outside of that panel under our contract
And
rules. So
yeah,
we'll
and
have
that's
to
a
check
good
to see
point,
if there's
Colleen.
a exemption at all to that.
Yeah, and even within the review committee, we're not supposed to discuss the proposals amongst each other until after we've done our initial scoring and we meet as a group to review to discuss them all together. We're supposed to do our reviews independently and then come together as a group.
Yeah, so what we maybe could do is, everybody's going to review it separately and do their scoring. And then if we had to notice that final meeting as a public meeting, we would have to include our contract officers in that. But maybe we can do that, and maybe that's the way to handle it, is everybody's independently scoring, and then that final meeting would be a public meeting, and it would only include those people that are on the review panel. So if I couldn't be sitting in and Melanie couldn't be sitting in, but our contracts people would sit in with the reviewers, if that would make sense. So we can check to see if that's a possibility.
I mean, the problem I'm having is that this is an LCCHP work group function, right? And so the work group has to authorize the expenditure of the funds. I get that the state has to, bureaucratically administer the contract, but we have got to follow the legal requirements for the work group to act. So if it has to be a two-step process, like you just said, some review committee, maybe with one of the commissioners participating, you all do your scoring, you then bring a recommendation to the work group, and then the work group holds their public meeting, they can vote on it, and then you can go back and do whatever you need to do as the state. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a potential option. Again, we have to check with our contracts people to make sure we're not violating any of their laws. Now, keep in mind with this RFQ process, I believe is what we're doing, with the costs not specifically being included. We pick the contractor based on qualifications, and then there's a separate step in negotiating the actual contract terms, and that is outside of the review panel. So I think that we could involve the county a little bit more in that potentially. So
okay, I
think we're going to need to be a little creative on how we get this done to try to meet the requirements of the work group as well as our legal contracting requirements. It might be a little difficult, but we could maybe talk with Alan, one of our higher up contract folks, and if need be, get in a meeting with you and Alan and see if we can figure out a way to work this
yeah,
this
I'm
out.
sure there's a way. I guess I didn't realize that that this wasn't also an RFP.
No,
Well,
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the clarification I wanted to make.
Okay.
This is an RFP. It's not an RFQ.
Okay.
So I believe that I think I misspoke earlier. We will be able to review based also on the cost.
Okay. Yeah. It's a little confusing sometimes with our various contract mechanisms, but yeah, let's touch base with if we're okay with this scope as is, assuming there aren't going to be significant changes. Let's touch base with Alan, Kyle, and see, kind of talk to him about what's different about this process, and get his thoughts, and then we might need to schedule a meeting with Melanie and Alan to kind of talk about it from the legal side of things.
Okay, yeah, I'm working with him on a separate RFP actually for Cal Gold. So I'll just I'll shoot in an email after this meeting, and then we can brief him. And then if he thinks he needs to talk to Melanie or get a better understanding of the legal requirements of the work group, we can bring Melanie on and have another meeting.
Well, you
Okay.
might just make sure that he has a copy of the MOU. I mean, the contract for the work, but he needs to have that base understanding that this is not just a standard kind of the state hires a contractor to go out and do work at the Superfund site. This is different. So yeah, just if you would share that document with him, I think that would be helpful. And then I'm available. Just let me know what you need.
Okay.
So who is somebody communicating with the homeowner, giving them updates?
Yeah, so I spoke with her last week and I told her that we were going to be meeting likely today to make decisions about the scope of work. And my intention is to reach out to her again today and just let her know that essentially the decisions that we've made and give her a rough estimate timeline of what the contracting process is going to look like.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no other discussion on the 218 scope of work, I figure we get right into our next agenda item, which is the repository use request from the West Park Elementary School project. It's my understanding that the county has finished their survey of the repository. I do have an email into Michael Irwin to try to get a specific number of the remaining capacity at the repository. But what I would like to do is, if we are all on board with approving the use of the repository for this project, then I will go ahead and draft a letter. And when I get the that final number from Michael Irwin, make sure that I include what our existing capacity is in that letter, and give approval for them to move that material to the repository. So I want to talk about that use request. Just to refresh everyone's memory, it's roughly 4,000 cubic yards of material that they're looking to bring up to the repository. The sample information that they provided us, although it does not exceed our site-specific trigger criteria for lead, it is elevated. They have sample results that in a couple locations that are above 1,500 milligrams per kilogram lead, which is well above the CDC guidance for lead in soil. I believe that this would be a good use of the repository, bring that material up there, but I think that it's open to discussion, and I want to get everyone's input on whether or not they think this material should go up there.
So EPA is supportive of it going there.
Okay.
I guess I would ask the commissioners, do you have a concern with making an exception without knowing what the remaining capacity is at the repository?
I have that question. Of course, the use seems very reasonable, but I'm sorry. I don't remember what our discussion was about dumping those in the landfill or not, because those levels weren't so high. Can you remind me? Really quick.
I mean, because the analytical data is below our trigger criteria for the metals that I mentioned, and due to the fact that they're requesting above 2,000 cubic yards per building permit, this request would have to have approval from CDPHE, EPA, and the county. Like I said, I'm still trying to get a figure from Michael the remaining capacity at the repository, but it's been relayed to me through the West Park group that that survey has been completed and that there is remaining capacity. So like I said, I've sent an email to Michael. I'm trying to follow up with him and see exactly what that remaining capacity is. And I would include that number in whatever approval letter that I put together, along with the quantity that West Park Elementary is requesting to bring up there, just so we memorialize and that the capacity at the time that they bring the material up there.
Kyle, I think, as I understood Commissioner Mudge's question, can this go to a regular landfill? Can't hear you. Kyle, are you on mute? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I don't know how that
I
happened.
muted you, Kyle, sorry, because of the.
No worries. I do not believe this material can go to the Lake County landfill due to the elevated metals concentrations. My understanding is that they're unlined and would not accept this material. We've explored bringing like material to the landfill in the past, and I do not believe that this would be accepted.
I know Michael's expecting to get that report back finally next week, but without further.
Well, I apologize. Like I said, it was kind of my understanding that that report had been finalized and that he actually had that capacity information. But if that hasn't, and then I'm okay with deferring this decision until a later time. I thought it was just a matter of kind of getting that updated information from Michael. But if I've been kind of
he's
led astray.
We thought we'd have it sooner, and he's run into difficulty. But I did reach out to him just now, and he said that he spoke with them yesterday, and he expects them to have that full report next week.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, I could at least draft an approval letter, and until we see that information, we could hold off on having an official decision and official, I guess, signing of that document until we actually see the final report.
That sounds good. It sounds like Michael also asked about the construction process and using the material on site. So there might be some other questions. It doesn't sound like that the material, like we're holding up progress in the construction in their project if we postpone.
Okay, that's good to know. Every time I speak with the folks involved with that project, they make it seem like this is an urgent decision that they need our input on. So
well, maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
I may not be correct.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think waiting a few days to see that final report and actually having that final capacity information to inform our decision would be the worst thing in the world. So, like I said, I will, in the meantime, draft a letter, and then when we see that final report, we can make a final decision.
Okay.
I'll just please keep in mind that the commissioners are going to have to convene another public meeting to vote on that in order to make that determination.
Okay. And I will definitely make sure that the West Park group is aware that another public meeting will need to happen before any formal decision can be made.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Like I said, like I said, I hadn't spoken directly to Michael regarding those survey results, and it was, like I said, it was my understanding that that report was kind of in hand, and that you guys knew what the remaining capacity was. So the next item I had on the agenda was about current blood lead levels. Given that the nurses weren't able to attend the meeting, and I don't believe they sent over the most recent blood lead levels, I think we could skip that topic and discuss it during our next work group meeting. Were there any other items that the work group wanted to discuss while we were on the line?
Oh, this is Linda. I just wanted to mention that the wire was received by Lake County for the $85,000 for the budget for this year. So that's been completed.
Okay.
And CDPHA didn't request any funding, so nothing was.
No,
sent.
we're
I just
we
wanted to
still
let
have
for the group.
yeah,
Yeah.
we still have adequate funding, so we didn't make a request for this year. We continue to draw down, and essentially when we need to make a request, we will.
Thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I guess we can go ahead and schedule the next work group meeting. Let me just pull up my calendar real quick. So my June is looking pretty open. Would the 16th, June 16th work for everyone?
Yep, that's fine for me.
Okay.
Jeff, is that Council of Government standing meeting on the third Wednesday? I can never quite remember.
Not popping up on my calendar already. Let me see.
Okay.
Um,
There's a Justice Center Task Force meeting that we do have that morning from about 9:30 to 11. So if we could do it outside that time.
I could do the following week, the 23rd.
That is popping up with COG.
How about the previous week, the 9th?
I have roundtable meetings. I think we can do it on the 16th if we do maybe like in a 11:30 to 12:30 or like 8:30 to 9:30 or afternoon.
Okay, yeah, I'll set it for, you said 12:30?
Yeah, well, there's a up until 12, like 11. Well, shoot, I'm sorry. Would like 8:30 to 9:30 looks best. Other than that, after
Okay.
2 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock on works.
I'll just do 8:30 to 9:30 then. I think that will work.
And then
I'm just gonna I'm sending out the meeting invite now, so to avoid the confusion
Okay.
and then
from this most recent meeting.
will the health department be giving vaccinations out that day like they are today, or do they do it on Wednesdays or by June it might completely change though? You know, the vaccinations.
Yeah, that's a good question. We can certainly ask them. It's not just happening on Wednesdays, I don't think. I think it's just happens to coincide this week. But that's a good question. And if you send that out, I'm sure Colleen will make sure that to flag that for Colleen. Kyle.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe what I'll do is just send a quick email to our previous thread, letting her know that we're thinking about the, Wednesday, the 16th, and to get her input.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. I appreciate all your input on the scope of work and the repository use discussion today. If any other questions or anything comes up, feel free to reach out to me, but I will definitely be in touch.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Kyle.